I'm going to tell you about my experience at the Pentagon, and then you
Oh
tell me
yeah.
about yours. Okay, great. So, and for folks who are just joining, this is Sabrina Singh. She used to work at the Pentagon in a high level capacity and also did a lot of work with Biden's White House. And she's going to tell us kind of like, what she thinks what the hell's going on over there or how things are supposed to be and her thoughts on also what's going on with this new like Venezuela game that he's playing. First, let me tell you how I got involved with the Pentagon. So I've done two programs through the Pentagon. One was called the Joint Civilian Observation Corps, which was like you do a week embedded with
Yes.
the military.
Yep. It's amazing.
It's incredible, amazing, just the amount of planning that goes into that particular event. We did even like combat zone press training stuff, like things so that you would understand like what people go through on a day-to-day basis with the military. And it was truly one of the most like difficult and humbling things I ever did. And to prepare for it, I had seen that classes before mine, when they did Navy Day, they made them do the SEAL workout in
Oh
the
yeah.
water. So I live in Rochester on Lake Ontario, and I'm not like a really good swimmer. So my wife and I were practicing this. I was like getting in my clothes and laying in the
Yeah.
wake of the lake. So I would be like ready for this. And then my team didn't even do it. So I lucked out though, I think, with that. But going through that was really incredible and eye-opening. And then other times I've been to the Pentagon, something I always found so interesting is how the honor guard that does the tours
Mhm.
walk backwards, like miles and miles
Oh
and miles all
yes.
throughout the Pentagon.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Incredible.
And they don't
And
bump into
so
anything.
and I got to take the boys out to dinner one time, and that was very exciting. So, I mean, they're great people that work there. That's the thing that I think folks, when we think about the DoD now, we're thinking about like all the, not great things that we hear that Pete Hegseth or different people over there have done. Folks who I really cared about, whose jobs either got defunded or they got let go. And you expect some of that with turnover administration, but it really does feel like such a hard turn. And coming into the Trump presidency, part of the thing that gave me a little bit of like safety feeling is I was like, the DoD is never going to be attacked. The DoD, if there's one thing that will stand really steady, it'll be the Pentagon. They won't go after that. And then they did. So tell folks your experience with how you got involved over there.
Well, that's so amazing, one, that you did the JCOC program. That's awesome. It gets you exposed to every single service and you get to interact like in real time with our incredible men and women. So I'm so glad that you did that. Um, my experience, I one come from a political background. My background is more democratic political campaigns. And so when I went into the Pentagon, it was such a different way of approaching my work. And the first thing that, of course, you're told is the military is apolitical, and that's always
Right.
how it should be.
Mhm.
And pretty much under every administration, you see varying levels of politicization, but I don't think we've ever seen something like this. And so when I walked into the Pentagon, any operation that we were talking about, a death of one of our service members, a mishap overseas, or just something here at home, it was always treated with such, just a line of being apolitical and making sure that we kept the politics out of those who are giving their lives, serving our country, and doing that all around the world. And that was something that I learned, day one going in. What a change it has really been to see where we are today, and
Mhm.
to have the Secretary of Defense spending his time on social media. From the workout videos to just going after
The
real
workout videos.
right,
That's kind.
right.
That's kind.
Right. The so-called workout videos. You got to interact with some of these people.
Mhm.
You don't sign up to put your life on the line and have someone just kind of go after your career. Um, and so it's really disheartening. But I also have a lot of hope because there are such good people there still. And I think they're really trying to do good work, but I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. And um, it's gonna take a long time to recover from, no matter who's in power at the White House.
During my JCOC, one of the places that
Yeah.
we stopped was Fort Moore, which I guess is now going back to being Fort Bragg. Is that
Yeah.
what yeah. And General Buzzard was giving this speech about the Moore family and like how important it was to the Army to have this named for them and how the family had just been there to do the naming. And they had this new slogan. It was like the Army where you can be more. And it was like incredible. And he was so super proud of it. I remember when he was hearing that they were doing this shenanigan thing to try and rename these military bases for Confederate soldiers by sort of fake honoring other soldiers who had the same last name. I was like, this has got to be one of the grossest things, not only just an absolute desecration of the Moore family's legacy to this space, but in honor of trying to honor a traitor by misusing the name of another soldier to try and pretend like you're not honoring a traitor. What have you heard about the military base renamings?
I think the renamings they're going forward under this administration. The one thing here is we did it too.
Yeah,
They can reverse it. To your point, I think it's a good one to make. Why are we celebrating and honoring the names of people that don't necessarily represent the fabric of what this country stands for? I think there's a place to come. To preserve their historical record, and they should be preserved because we should learn from history. But, a base being named after them, we spent, we had independent studies do this, and it was,
mm,
people from both sides of the aisle coming together
right.
to put together these studies to rename a base. And the findings were pretty thorough. But also, as you said, finding names that, like Fort Liberty, like finding names that represent everyone. It's gonna take millions of dollars now to go back
Go
and
back.
reverse the renamings that started under President Biden, and I think in the context of Doge and, the context of this administration wanting to cut, the waste, fraud, and abuse, why do that? Why start
That
there? And it's
wasn't one of them.
no, and it's all a messaging, ploy
Yeah.
that they're focused on, but it is going
Maybe
to
we get a
take
little
away.
bug control out on Paris Island. That's what I remember from my day with the
Yeah,
Marines. Maybe we get those guys and gals like a little,
yeah,
maybe like a little upgraded bunk or something. They've got the
yeah,
same platforms as they had in like 1940. Like maybe that's a better use of our funds,
yeah.
Secretary.
Exactly, or, like, just finding ways to have better internet access
Yeah.
for people in
Yep.
remote areas, improving childcare services, like, there's
Right.
so many ways to tackle, things that our military needs. This is not necessarily the first priority I would put.
Well, one of the things that I think is sad is because the military is sort of like insulated and military families can
Yeah.
be side of kind of like their whole own culture within American culture. There were a lot of things that Secretary Austin and the Biden administration that you worked on were going to be implementing for military families that now just straight up aren't going to happen. And it was stuff like better mental health care, better child care, improved education, improved food on base. We were going to get fresh fruit and vegetables at the commissary, babes. We were trying for that for so long, okay?
Yeah.
And now they've sort of like, I think there are things that the American public doesn't know were taken away because they were just on the edge of finally getting put through. And that friggin' bums me out, man. It's just like,
I know, and there were really good initiatives, like you said, like expanding childcare access, raising base pay. I mean, these are all
yep,
good things that help our people,
everyone. Yeah,
and that shouldn't be a partisan issue, but,
here we are.
unfortunately, here we are.
So, stuff that I want to ask you about, just
Yeah,
I know that you're not there anymore, so it's hard to, you can't like speak for this administration or whatever, but something that my audience is finding very concerning is the way that Trump moved all those warships over off the coast of Venezuela and then was like, we blew up a boat. I promise you, there was drug traffickers on it and tons of drugs. We won't ever be able to prove it because we blew it up. And we're going to do a bunch more of that. That scares people. People are very concerned about that. Like, why do you think that's happening? And like, is there anything we could do to try to stop that? Like,
yeah. Well, I think you raise a great question here. Um, you know, a boat is really like a lenient term. It was like a dinghy
yeah.
that was speeding away. I think here there's so many questions. One, it's the use of force and the authorities that are being done. Why wasn't a boat that was smuggling or allegedly smuggling drugs interdicted?
Sure.
We have DEA for a reason. So to pull our military and potentially that they haven't said what type of capability was used, but it was probably some type of drone.
Hmm.
I also saw that it was reported that it might have been a helicopter. These are multi-million dollar platforms that
Yeah.
was used to destroy a boat allegedly carrying 11 people that could have been interdicted by DEA or Coast Guard or with the help of our Navy ships. So
Hmm.
that's one. I think it's a real question of the use of force and authorities. Um, yes, this administration has designated some cartels as terrorist organizations. That does not mean that this administration has the authority to just, have like the lethal authority that they took to take action against some of these, cartels. So I think that an important point. But I think what I really struggle with here is we're pulling ships, capabilities, military assets from our priority theater, which should be China.
Mm-hmm.
The Indo Pacific, China is the only country with the military capability, the economic prowess to change the rules based order. And I think we are taking our eye off the ball
Mm-hmm.
by deploying National Guard to cities, stationing, destroyers in the Southern Command area of responsibility, which is, outside Venezuela. We are pulling and losing our eye on the ball. And that should really be the concern.
I mean, that's what I heard for the last 4 years
Mhm.
was the greatest threat to America was China. That's why we had to have the TikTok ban because anything China an inch
Yeah.
was considered like, no, you guys don't understand like how close we are to, like conflict or change or issues. And then China does that military parade the other day, which a lot of people were like, whoa, oh my God, they're so serious. I was like, yeah, they're really great at ceremonial goose stepping. Like, I don't know when the last time China won a war is. I'd like to see them do those fancy moves up against us. I don't think it'll go well for them. But it is scary that they're doing this sort of like display of might. They're showing how synchronized they are, how disciplined they are at a time when it feels like our administration is scattered all over the place. We're helping Ukraine. We're not helping Ukraine. We're in Venezuela. We want to own the Panama Canal. We're not going to do this. Like that, I think, is what freaked me out about the China thing
Yeah.
more than anything.
Yeah.
And Putin just trolling Trump by holding hands with Modi and Xi Jinping is like it's a real spooky thing. I think people think it's a joke, and it's like no. For 4 years, this was very serious. This
Yeah.
the threat of China.
And that visual that you saw, of Kim Jong Un from North Korea, Xi Jinping
Yep.
of China, and President Putin of Russia, they are creating their own new axis and willing to challenge Western powers. And the problem here is that they're going unchecked. I mean,
Ugh.
it's how many times have we heard now? In 2 weeks, I'm going to put severe consequences on Russia. In 2 weeks, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z on Russia. And Putin is walking away with a free pass. We're seeing that with Ukraine. But the fact that we're pulling our assets, our men and women from the Indo Pacific, repositioning some in the Middle East, and I'm not saying some of that is not warranted. We have to protect our people, but moving ships to outside of Venezuela, pulling our National Guard into our cities. I mean,
Mhm.
the only place this administration has deployed troops is on U.S. soil. Um, so, you have to wonder how does that fit into the broader goal of keeping a check on China? And
Mm.
that really is concerning. So that image of all three of those leaders standing together, I mean, I hope it's a wake-up call. I don't know that it will be, but
I mean, it is for people like us, even a little. I was
yeah,
like, shit, oh God. And then the National Guard thing, I think the average American understands. And I think last I checked, it was like over 80% disapprove of having the National Guard deployed into American cities. One, because the respect that most people have for the military is we don't want to watch the National Guard pick up trash in a park. Like something about that diminishes the sort of like reverence we have for them. And also, word on my friend's street is I'm not re-enlisting for this shit. I can't. Like I'm in the guard because I got like a job. People in the guard have full-time like jobs and then they go on the weekend and when they get called. And granted, you can't get fired from your job if you get called up for service, but this wasn't exactly what we thought we were signing up for. And now we're away from our families, we're away from our jobs,
right,
we're picking up trash or standing around buildings. The people who are coming out to protest hate us, and a lot of us don't even want to be here doing this because it doesn't make sense, but we got to stand here and do what we're supposed to do. And it's like, it's just bad for like morale, what's going
yeah.
on too.
And I think what's important to remember is exactly what you said. Our Marines, our soldiers, our sailors, our airmen do not sign up for their service to go and deploy to a city to like they're standing around and they're not doing anything and crime is low or going down in these cities they sign up to fight our wars. They sign up
Mhm,
to protect us. Um, and so, I have tremendous respect for the people that are in the guard and are going to these cities who are, are being asked to do things that they didn't sign up for or don't want to. Um, it's not a good use of their time. We are, Pete Hegseth, he talks about lethality, he talks about war fighting. We are pulling these people away from their day-to-day missions where
mhm,
they train and go through different exercises to prepare for whatever, whether it be from a foreign adversary, a cyber threat, whatever it is,
mhm.
we're pulling them away from their mission. And we're pulling them away for a photo op. And that uh deeply, deeply troubles me.
And now he's got him carrying guns, which my guys are like, "Great, another 10 pounds in the LA heat." Like, that wasn't something I needed, right? Like, there's just things that are cruel that this administration does, and then there are things, like you say, they do for the photo op that just add burden, literal physical burden to people who took an oath to say, "I'm willing to lay my life down for the freedom of the people of this country, whether they appreciate me or not." And then you're sending them out there to, like, intimidate the people they took a vow to protect. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And
Right.
so it is I mean, that kind of stuff's very frustrating, but getting kind of like off the frustration part and onto, what recovery from this could potentially look like. Like, how much damage do you think we're doing to our allies in Europe right now up against the threat of China by one, not backing Ukraine the way that we promised we would, and two, kind of like Trump's chummy chummy I love China thing going on?
Yeah, it with our partners and allies, I think you're seeing the alliances really fray and patience really fray. This administration does not seem to want to understand that arming Ukraine, giving Ukraine the resources, the military equipment, the intelligence support that it needs to fight its war against Russia is in our interest. I mean,
Mhm,
we do have a defensive treaty alliance with NATO that if a NATO country is attacked, and Putin has made very clear he has ambitions beyond Ukraine, that the United States would have to come and support one of their NATO allies.
mhm,
And so, this wishy-washy back and forth kind of policy. Not to mention that you have, one person sort of doing the job, which is Steve Witkoff, of negotiating and clearly not really understanding how this all works. It is putting a massive strain on our alliances. And the larger problem here is our alliances and our partners and allies are going to look to other countries to turn to for support. So
mhm.
when we are isolated on the world stage, it actually works against us and it's against our interests. So I think that's really important. But then, of course, I think the red carpet rollout at the Alaska summit for Vladimir Putin, really sent a chilling message. And clearly, I think Putin is a master manipulator and has clearly played this administration and Donald Trump. Um, I hope that they are coming around to continue to see this, but it's of course going to put an added stress on, our European allies, of course.
That red carpet thing was just so weird. Like, somebody was explaining it on one of the TV shows. They were like, it's like when a middle schooler gets to meet the high school quarterback and he's just so excited. And Trump is this like little kid, like, oh my God, my hero, the coolest guy in high school is at my birthday party. And like, he doesn't realize it was like a favor to somebody that he showed up like, oh yeah, I don't actually like you, but whatever. Oh, cool red carpet, buddy. That's so cool. I
That's
just
a funny way of describing. I had not heard that, but that is fitting.
I've run in very funny circles, okay? We are using humor to cope with the impending
Yeah.
disaster of what's going on right now, but, you know, I I I'm worried. Here's the thing. I think I'm worried about what this administration will do, but I am very strong in my convictions that the military will not take an unlawful order. And folks are like, "But they are. They're in LA." And I'm like, "But they're not. They made this, they could guard federal buildings thing legal."
Yeah.
And I know that for the last several decades, because one of the generals on the JCOC thing was explaining it to me, he was like, 50% of people sign up for the military because their family did, and they come from that family and they want to serve their country, continue that tradition. There's another 30% who come because they don't have anything else to do, and they're like, well, this looks like a really good opportunity for me. I'll give it a try. I was never super into the military before, but I'll give it a try. He's like 10%. And what was it? It was like 10% are overachievers who are just using this as a means to get a political career somewhere else, and 10% are fucking crazy. And it is my job to find the 10% of fucking crazy people and get them out of here. And I was like, you know what? If that's been the plan, to find the extremists, to find the folks who are not here for the mission in the right way, or who maybe see the military as an opportunity to like be a kill machine, and removing them. If we've been doing that for the last like 20, 25 years, then I have really strong hope that the people that are there now are there for the right reason and are going to continue to like, hold the line for tradition of American security, and not for some sort of like reverence for this murderous, in my opinion, president. Moving from Pentagon to White House. So you went from
Yeah.
Pentagon over to the White House. What
Oh,
was that?
vice versa.
Oh, vice
Vice
versa. You
versa.
started at the White House, then went to the Pentagon.
Yes.
What was it like working in the White House? Like,
Yeah. Yes. So I was day one in the White House, on the vice president's team. So I was working for Kamala Harris. I think it you can't replicate or recreate what it was like, um, those first few months, because we walked in, pandemic was, still
raging. Mhm.
raging. And it was a very odd but like exciting moment,
Mhm.
to be in the White House and to walk through those gates. And I remember someone told me before, she said, when you walk through those White House gates, you're gonna be so overwhelmed. Just take a moment to like take it all in. And I was able to do that. And it's a really humbling and amazing experience. And I loved my time at the White House. I really did. It's an incredibly fast-paced environment. Everything is thrown at you, and in those first few months, we were dealing with the pandemic, but we also, came in on a mission of, like, making people's lives better, and there was a lot to get done. And so it was great, um, but, working during that pandemic time, everyone's masked, everyone's social distancing still. It was
Mhm.
tough. It was really hard, but, incredibly grateful for that time. It was great.
You get your COVID test every morning? I remember every
Every
time
morning.
every morning, every time
Every
I
morning.
came, I would be like,
Yep.
because a lot of folks think that influencers get paid to come to the White House, and I assure you, they do not. There is no budget to visit the White House, okay? You gotta figure that out yourself. And again, it was pandemic, I was much younger in my career, I really
Mhm.
like, when you would get invited, I'm like, "Well, I can't say no," but, like, if I wake up with COVID and I already paid for the hotel and the
Right.
plane ticket and took
It's
time off
awful.
work, oh my gosh, and I remember being so nervous going to that little building across the street from the White House to get that
Yeah,
COVID test.
I know,
People
and then, like, everyone's, like, lined up too, and then you have to, like, wait, for however long it takes to get your test
will
results
call
back,
you.
and yeah.
I'd been tested in hotel rooms. There would be, like, CVS hotel suites where they would be like, "Okay, you get tested for this and
Oh,
whatever." I mean,
what a
there was
time, right?
it was a time, and there is a lot of magic to the White House, which I wish every person could experience, or maybe they could do, like, a better documentary about the White House, because there is nothing quite like Joe Biden's White House when we would be in the Roosevelt Room, like, being held for whatever he or Kamala was gonna come in and say to us,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, like, Ron Klain would show up with, like, a bag of M&Ms or, like, Hershey
Yeah, yeah,
Kisses,
yeah.
where one time we were running really late and Biden was like, "Did they give you guys lunch?" And we were like, "No." And he's like, "Can we get some cookies for these kids up here?" And I'm 40. Okay. I was like, "Yeah, can we? Can we, Grandpa? Like, can we, Dad?" And it was just
Yeah,
like, there was a certain kind of like kindness that surrounded this White House that Joe Biden was able to step out of his role as president, I think, pretty frequently, and more maybe with the kids, as he called us, like the young new media people,
yeah,
um, and would really sort of like provide almost like a mentorship, like a break. He made it a lot kinder. If you didn't understand the protocol, you didn't get in trouble. You were really sort of like guided through the process. And he would answer really tough questions too about like incarceration or what was going on with pandemic or what was going on with the
mhm,
number of things. And I'm so grateful to him for that. And it's another thing that I'm sad for, right? Now, when we see
yeah,
the press secretary bringing in people, it's like, oh, that's a staged question. Like we sort of, and then they want to claim that they were the first digital administration. And I'm like, I assure you not.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
no.
Right, I
So
know, a lot of, "This is the first time this has happened." I'm like, "I don't think so," but,
I'm not
um,
sure about that, yeah, but
yeah, it's I also think from the previous administration that I served in, I really think there was a mission to, make people's lives better. I
yeah.
think, whether you agreed or disagreed with the approach, I think that is a fine debate to have. But I think particularly for the people that I worked with, obviously, in the Biden administration, Kamala Harris and Secretary Austin, they really had the goal of how can we lift people up? How can we address the concerns, whether it be, Black maternal health,
Yep.
or, raising pay for our service members, expanding school access, expanding childcare services. There was always this focus on, you know, making sure that we do right by our fellow Americans. And I think I'm not, there are certainly many people in government with that goal. It just, it felt like more like a mission
Mhm.
as part of the Biden administration, and now just some of the legislation that you're seeing and how they're, targeting and like pulling apart families.
Mm.
Um, that's just not who we should be. We can address immigration, we can address crime, we can do all the things that this administration came in with the campaign promise of doing, but we can do it in a way that is effective, and that doesn't, break the fabric of who we are as Americans. So yeah, I agree with you. I kind of miss that sort of like, we're kind of in this together. I think we need to get back to that.
There was a speed to the Biden administration where every day it felt like there was something. I do Good News every Thursday, and it was kind of easy to come up with a lot of stuff. I'm not saying he did everything perfect, but every week there was something like an advancement on the Inflation Reduction Act or advancement towards student loan forgiveness, and then, of course, the courts would shoot it down or something. There was, Kamala Harris's women's health tour that was really interesting,
Hmm.
where she went to all
Yeah.
those different cities and talked about that. Um, I remember being in a room with, and there was a trans kid in the room talking about just like what it was like after the next Benedict killing. And um, President Biden was like, I have your back. Okay. Like, yeah, there's
Yeah.
bad people out there, but when it comes to what we're doing, like, just know, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that you just get to grow up and live a decent life. And we were like, okay, just treated this kid like any other American. It wasn't like a specific, like, trans special thing, right? Like, they want to make it seem like, oh, the Democrats were the trans
Right.
presidents. It was like,
Right.
no, it was like, you're an American citizen. I care about what you care about. And I want you to have just as safe and happy and easy a life as anybody else does. And I do yearn for those days.
I
Those were the
know.
days. Those were
I
the
know.
days.
I mean, the good thing is that, I mean, maybe the silver lining here
Yep.
is, Trump is taking a sledgehammer to everything. So there's an opportunity to create something new.
Rebuild. Mhm.
And, we have the midterms coming up. We have, of course, 2028 will be, but that feels so far away.
I can't
So
even think that
I
far.
know, I
I
know. So
can't.
it's like we have the midterms. And
Mhm.
right now, as you know, like they're trying to rig the system. They're trying to steal seats. So like
Yep.
we have to turn out. And
Mhm.
you're fed up with this administration. I know I am. Like we gotta vote in the midterms, and I think that's the first way we're gonna start to change things.
What kind of work are you doing now?
Yeah, so I am doing strategic communications consulting, which is
Very
great.
good.
I'm at a great firm called Seven Letter, working with a range of different clients and companies. It's great. It's really kind of a total change, to be working with the private sector,
Yeah,
but
I
also
bet.
really like the private sector does amazing things. And you don't, of course, you realize that in government, but
Yeah.
you don't get the feel for it. You're sort of like, oh, yeah, there's my, X product or whatever. And um, I have to say, I mean, I do love government and I loved what I do, but like government can move very slow. And it is amazing to see what the private sector, the speed, the scale, and
Mhm.
the talent that they bring in, both
Mhm.
from government and around the world.
Mhm.
Um, so it's great.
I see government service as truly a service. It's like an enlistment. Like when you decide you're going to go work for the government, you're going to put in your 4 to however many years and then you have to get out. That's why I don't understand these congressmen and senators want to stay in office for 40 years and stuff. I'm like, you're nuts, okay? You
I
should do
know.
4 8 years like George Washington said and get out of there because you're going to be weird after that. You can't stay this long, okay? It's a
I
dangerous,
know.
weird place.
And then you
DC
get
is
caught
not
up
like
in the
anywhere.
yeah, you get caught up in like the DC grind. And it's like,
Yeah.
sometimes you just need to like get out a little bit.
Get out
Yeah.
and go do something else. So, speaking of the midterms and sort
Yeah.
of where we're at right now, the thing I hear all the time is, well, we need a Joe Rogan of the left. Well, we need a whatever. And I'm like, I'm not sure that we do. I think that if we're chasing the Joe Rogan of the left, then we're 2 years ago when he was creating this trend of sort of like the podcast
Yeah.
influencer situation. Where do we go that's new and fresh and interesting? Like, what could we be doing as the left to have something, a message that's better than, well, we're not that guy, you know?
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's what it feels like.
Yeah, well, I think you're doing it. I mean, I think like like you have a platform, you reach people, you also I think bring on interesting guests.
Hmm.
I agree with you. Like I think Joe Rogan started something. I think if we're looking to that model of just like, okay, now it's all this medium and platform, we're going to miss the forest through the trees. I
Right.
think what we have to focus on more is like really reaching people where they are.
Hmm.
And the amazing thing about this digital landscape is it's your phone, your laptop, your iPad, your TV. Um, but like the way I consume news is probably, I mean, I know it's different than the way my parents consume news, the way, and then very different from like my, friends with kids who
Yeah.
consume news. So I think it's I think the one lesson that we do have to take from the Trump administration and like the Trump campaign is they did really flood the zone and they
Hmm.
were not scared to engage everywhere, which I
Hmm.
think is good. I also think as a party and as Democrats, and I might get I might get some blowback for this, but I think we have to be a little bit more forgiving of people making mistakes. Like people, candidates, are people,
Hmm.
we're all human. We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna say the wrong thing sometimes. That
Let
doesn't mean
people
like,
swear in campaign messages is my message, okay? Let's drop a little F bomb, a little
yeah,
GD every so
yeah,
often. It's
right,
okay.
right. And also just, not everyone's gonna get it right all the time. That doesn't
Right.
mean we need to like immediately rush to be like, you're done, you're over, you're canceled. I think
Right.
we have to allow a little grace and a little like, "Hey, you got it wrong, but like, let me, I like generally your ideas. Let me tell you how to like fix it, or like I think you could have done better." And then I think the last thing, I don't think, I think Donald Trump, they did a great job with branding and, they had the MAGA slogan. I mean, he is very talented at creating something that is very easy to comprehend.
It's a brand.
It's
It's
a
got
brand.
merch. It's got
Yes.
community. Yeah.
Yes. I think our alternative to that is like we actually just need people that are willing to offer solutions. We
Mhm.
need the problem solvers, like the people that are going to be like, all right, like you have a pothole, let's fix it. What's next? You got a broken bridge, like we need those people.
Mhm.
And I think we got them. I
Mhm.
do. I really think we have them in our party. And the nice thing is we've got a lot of time for a lot of voices to emerge.
I love that you say if you got a pothole, we gotta fix it. One of my favorite brand campaigns ever was
Yep.
Domino's when they
Oh,
had this campaign for a short period of time, and they were sending out trucks to fix potholes so that your
really?
pizza would be delivered better. It would be a smoother
That's
ride for your
amazing.
pizza, and I think it was one of the most genius things ever. It endeared people to the brand. They really did fix potholes. They
Wait, that's
really did
awesome.
pay to fix,
We
like,
should bring this
potholes
back.
in people's cities and stuff, and people friggin' loved it, and it was super funny. Look, it's gonna take a lot from Chuck Schumer to get me back at this point because 'cause I'm like, "Baby, please, you have given so much to this country. Just let us give you something now." Like, a rest. I don't know, but if Chuck Schumer got out there and started personally filling potholes in New York, look, I'm back
Right,
with you. I'm back in. But I
right.
gotta see, like, a little bit of that. Some of the people who have inspired me so much are like Dre for Iowa, who is this young woman who has a theater background, which I think the theater kids have a big opportunity right now to really
Let's
turn
go.
this. It's
Yes.
the second act. It's time to bring on the comedic genius, and who's gonna fix everything. But she ran this wonderful campaign on basically no money, and she unseated a Republican in Iowa who held that seat for 13 years. So it's like, we can do these things. We just have to be regular ass people out there
Yeah.
physically fixing potholes, you know? It's like, yeah.
And like one of the totally agree. And because you mentioned Iowa, I think that is like such an indicator of wind at our backs. We
Yeah.
like Democrats have already flipped like 4 special election seats in a row.
Yeah.
And it's because they're putting up candidates that are willing to say, "That's a problem, and I have an idea. I have a
Mhm,
solution, and I have" it's not these, like, wonky policy proposals and, like, "Let's get it through the legislature." It's like, "Yeah, your street's broken. Let's figure this out," like, "Let's fix it."
mhm.
And we need that. And so I think I was a great example of that.
Kat Abou-Ghazala, who's running, she's Gen Z running in Illinois' ninth district, seventh or ninth. I have dyslexia. It's hard for me to do the numbers. But one of those, she did a really cool thing that I loved too, because I think when we think of like big politics at the federal level, we think of like, what's the silver bullet? Well, how are we going to
Yeah.
get 25,000 people to register to vote with one Taylor Swift campaign? I don't think that's going to fly this time. So take this one back to your people. She raised a bunch of money and then she threw a block party instead of sending out mailers. She threw, like, a little potluck party and was like
Super
and did
interesting.
mutual aid, come out, and there's, like, a coloring station for your kids because she doesn't have any money.
Right.
There was a bounce house maybe, but they people did, and then she let people know, "With the money I raised for my campaign, I'm gonna physically be there all day and, like, come and have a hot dog, have a hamburger, come talk to me," instead of getting my face in your mailbox and being like, "Oh god, what a waste of paper," and I was like, it's that kinda stuff that I think the pendulum swings so much into the reality TV celebrity world, it is gonna come back down to, like, who's a good hang?
Yeah. Yeah, who's a good hang? Yeah, I
Who's
love
buying the
that.
hot dogs today? Like, low expectations guy.
Yeah, and also, like, because you said that, it's like, who's buying the hot dogs? Also, like, who also knows the prices that you're paying at the grocery
Right?
store and, like,
Exactly.
understands that. Like, I love that idea
Yeah.
of, like, taking those funds,
Take
like,
it back to to
having
the
a block
people.
party. Yeah, I love that. I think that's great, and, like, yeah, campaigns are expensive, they're
Mhm,
costly, not everyone's gonna have the resources to do,
mhm.
ri like
Crazy stuff, yeah.
right, crazy stuff, run ads, so I think that's super innovative, that's awesome.
You got local chefs in every
Yeah.
district, celebrity chefs, very trusted people. That was my world before. So yeah, bring that back to the people that you know and let them know that we want hot dogs, not mailers, okay? If you could just get that through for me,
I'll
I
try.
would really appreciate that. Well, tell folks where they can find you, where they can learn more from you. I appreciate you coming. We've been doing this series so that people can meet more safe friends. I hope you come back if something comes up that you want us to know about.
Too. Well, this is I mean, seriously, I think your question on, like, how do we reach people, I think, honestly, this is so great, and I would love to come back on anytime. I'm on X, I'm on Instagram. I just created my Substack, don't
Oh,
judge me, it's a
Substack's
passion.
good.
It's
Yeah.
really good, it's really good,
Mhm.
I just did it. But I love having these conversations. I think it's, you know, as people are learning more about what this administration is doing, I think, obviously you're seeing things that are it's really hard to stomach, and it's really hard, to kind of figure out how to kind of fight back, and I think the best way is to really get involved, not only in your communities, but, like, get involved in the Democratic Party
Yeah.
if that's the party that speaks to you, and definitely, 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 we have to make things better in the midterms, so vote.
We do. I've given up on trying to talk too much about the damage that the Trump people are doing because they have the power and they're going to do the damage and you're going to hear about it. And I
Yeah.
think back to like when I was bullied in high school. Did I talk about the bully every day? No, I started a recycling club and then people wanted to be in my club and then I wasn't bullied anymore. And so it's like, what are you going to do to like create something else to make new friends if you feel like you're
Yeah.
alone and getting bullied, which is how a lot of America feels right now? Where can we be joining to be like, I'm not gonna beat the bullies, so I'm gonna start my own little club, and maybe you wanna join my club because maybe you feel bullied too, and we
Yeah.
can do something good together, so
You also need to, like, a mental health break, like,
yeah,
take the time to, like, the news cycle, it's so hard
it's
to
too
keep up
much.
with, like,
Yeah.
go watch your reality show, go read
Yes!
your romantasy,
Okay,
go
wait,
read
last
whatever.
question,
Yeah.
what's your trash TV escape?
I mean, I pretty much ever all of the Real Housewives.
Okay,
So that's
yes,
like
we
I'm
love that.
watching OC right now. I am a little behind, but
Mhm.
because my life was taken over temporarily by My Life with the Walter Boys while I'm waiting for the next episode of The Summer I Turned Pretty, which I'm one episode behind on. So that is what I'm going to
Yes.
be doing today.
Okay, well, not to add to your plate, but check out
Yeah.
the 90 Day Fiancés as
Oh,
well. That is a crazy show that I wonder how it's gonna go on with the immigration laws the way they are. If you like 90 Day Fiancé, vote blue so we can keep these trash TV shows on the air.
love
All
it.
right, it's been so great chatting with you. Thank you,
Yes.
Sabrina. We'll see you soon.
Sounds
Bye.
great. Thanks. Bye.